Welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast, number one ranked basketball podcast in the state of Missouri. And I'm joined today by my brother Toby.
What's up?
And the coach of the number one scoring high school team in the United States of America, a guy who I'm proud to say that we hired last year at Delta, Chris Hahn.
How's it going?
And, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. And before we jump into the podcast, full disclosure here, technically I am Chris's boss, and so he's got to say nice things or whatever. But Chris, all the time, Toby and I are talking, and he always tells me that I deserve the General Manager of the Year award for hiring you. Because we certainly maxed out our team this year. I thought we had a great season, and I thought the things that you brought to the program were a big reason why. And so just talking about the system, you run the Grinnell system, and I'll kind of clear the floor for you, and you can kind of, talk about, maybe coming to Delta and what that was like.
Yeah. Well, when I got the opportunity to, interview last summer, you kind of told me about the kids we had, and you thought it would be a pretty good fit with them. Meeting the kids, we had a lot of kids that could play basketball, and we were blessed with a lot of guards this year. We also had some really good big kids. We just had, varsity guys. We had 9 guys that could play. So, it's a perfect fit for what I'd like to do.
And so kind of going back, I know, Toby, you coached for a couple years there, the boys at North Pemiscot.
Yep.
And you and Chris actually coached against each other down there. And you and I we're always talking about just different ideas, and you and I came up with this thing of how the three-point shot could maybe be a way to maximize points in a slow-down game, not a speed-up game. And we were always kicking these different ideas back and forth. But then you mentioned that Chris was doing this. And so, full-blown. He's going full Grinnell. And so, Coach, what made you decide, I guess the first question, did you start coaching like this your first year? Or was it something you changed to?
No, when I first came to Hawcom, we were in the Boot Hill Conference, so you're playing against a lot of athletes. Back then, when I was young and I had no idea what I was doing, we kind of did the whole pack line defense and, worked the ball on offense for a long time, keep it in the 40s or 50s. And then every year I'd kind of dabble in it a little bit on little parts. I think the last game of that first year, that was whenever you were at Clarkton. We had some bad weather, and I think a lot of the games got canceled right before districts.
Polar vortex. The polar vortex does not play around.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Easy.
So that year, we got beat by Bernie in the first round of districts, and we're done. And the administration came up and said, "Hey, we're going to schedule a game against Risco for senior night." You're after your last game, you're kind of emotionally drained, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. I was talking with my assistant at the time. We're like, dude, there's no way our kids are going to want to play this game. There's no meaning to it. So I had bought that Coaching the System book and kind of reading it all year, and I was like, you know what, we're gonna try something crazy this game. We're gonna do it. So, we had 15 kids, sophomores through seniors, and we went 5 in, 5 out, and shot a lot of threes. And man, the kids had fun with it. So, in the back of my mind, I kind of always wanted to do it again. But going into my last year there, we were super young. We had 4 upperclassmen, just 1 senior. And those groups weren't the most talented in the world, but I had a lot of kids that worked hard and showed up to everything for me. They were loyal. So it was kind of a way that I could kind of get everybody playing time and kind of develop the younger kids. And, so I just went full blown that year, kind of went crazy mode and did it.
And I remember, when we were looking at applications, when our job came open, and I'm not going to say any of the other coaches' names, but we had a handful of coaches that applied. And like any small school, a small school, when you have a job that opens up, you're going to get some guys who, for lack of a better term, are a retread. They've been a head coach somewhere else, and they're kind of cycling through to another job. Or you get the guys that are, just starting out. They've never coached before. They're coming straight out of college. And we had the full range of that. We had all those names in the pile. And, you're not going to get, when a job opens up at a small school, unless you're Scott County Central with Otto Porter or something like that, you're not going to get Mike Krzyzewski coming in and applying for these jobs. So when your name came in, I remember pulling yours and telling our principal, Scott Crabtree, I was like, this is a guy to pay attention to. And he said, why do you say that? And back to what you said earlier, I just thought with the kids that we had, Isaiah Thomas's dad and Eric Berry's dad, a lot of the dads had coached these kids growing up, and they did a really good job with them. Mm-hmm. They were an up-tempo bunch of kids, but I just thought we had shooters like Isaiah Thomas, Evan Bartles, guys who could really shoot it. I think we've got the best point guard in this part of the state. I mean, Eric Berry's vision is special. He's got special vision and special instincts as far as finding other people and getting them open. And then I thought your big guys were really a key, too. I mean, you got guys like Kobe Crater, Dale Lincoln, that can run, that can play this way. And then, you've got the ultimate glue guys in the middle of that, like John Bond, Grant Coomer, different kids. I just thought they all would fit into what you're doing. And so when you came in, what was the big challenge for you getting the kids to buy into this? Because I remember early on, especially in junior high season, you may be coming home from a game and shoot me a text and say, kind of those woe is me texts that all coaches do. Toby and I will send those to each other all the time. Just what was your big hurdle early on?
Early on, just kind of getting kids to buy in, to what I was doing, because it is, goofy in other terms. Like the stuff that I'm wanting kids to do is, even if kids play up tempo growing up, like this stuff is still like to the max. And, in the summer, we did the 5 in, 5 out and all that stuff. And, we're playing with little Isaiah Berry out there and some junior high kids, and, we're not doing real well. And some of the guys are kind of like, man, this stuff isn't going to work. So just kind of getting those guys to buy into kind of, I think they played, 5 to 6 kids a year before most of the time. And, you got kids like Eric and Isaiah that never come off the floor, and you're asking them to, finally come off the floor just for a little bit. Like just that mindset that, you can go 100% all the time. You don't have to pace yourself. And then just buy-in from everybody, parents, fans, all that stuff, because it is kind of goofy. And, whenever you throw it out there, people are like, there's no way that's going to work. But, it ended up working out for us.
Yeah, I would say so. And, I think that one thing that I thought, as a coach, well, first of all, just as an administrator, now that I'm an administrator, I've always been real careful about telling other coaches how to coach. Mm-hmm. I was very lucky. The guy that I looked up to growing up, Ronnie Cookson, Ronnie always had a great saying. I'd go to his house, we'd sit there at the kitchen table, and he'd dip those cookies in his sweet tea. I'll never forget him doing that. But Coach Cookson we'd sit there at the kitchen table and we'd talk basketball, even when I was still in college and when I was just starting out coaching. And I'd say, Coach, what do you think about this? Coach, what do you think about that? And Ronnie Cookson he had this great saying. He would say, well, my opinion and 50 cents will get you a Coke, which is like saying my opinion's not worth much, Mm-hmm. But I don't think 50 cents will get you a Coke anymore. But to his point, I always tried to take that. Like if that guy's won all that he's won, and he's not trying to tell me how to coach, he's giving me his opinion, but then he's saying, hey, you do it the way you want to do it, because bottom line, it's your team. And so that's the way I've always tried to give other coaches advice when I was just a coach. But now that I am an administrator, I try to be real careful. Like when I'm talking to you or when I had Dustin Ferguson at Clarkton, I try to do the same thing. And so when you would ask me for advice, and I would say, well, here's what I think. One thing that I thought was fascinating that you did with your older group of kids is everybody thinks about the system. Like if you're running the true system, it's 5-5-5, 3 sets of 5, mm-hmm. 3 different groups of kids. Every group has their own press. One group's a diamond and one group's a 2-2-1, one group's a 1-2-2, or man-to-man, whatever. Every group's got their own set or their own quick hitter to get a shot for the shooter. It's the true system is not really what you run. Because in a 1A school, you may not even have 15 kids on the team, so you can't really run it. But what I thought you did that was awesome was you tweaked, and I remember a comment that I said to you one night when you sent me one of those woe is me texts, was, you have to find a way to, what is Chris Hahn's system? Like you've watched the tapes and you've seen everything, but how are you going to make it fit with this group of kids? Mm-hmm. And so what I saw you do that I thought was awesome was you really you rotated freely kind of 7 kids. but you played 9. And those other 2, Berkman and Hunter Orth, you would slip those 2 in there depending on the situation. And at different times this year, like I can think about the conference game against Oran, you don't win without Hunter. Hunter comes in just dropping bombs. I mean, raindrops. He's in there just letting them go and hit just ginormous shots at big times of the game. So talk about how you had to kind of whittle your rotation down, and how long did that take you, and how did you settle on the group that you settled on?
When I first came in, I'd go to your office and we'd talk for a little bit. I always said I wanted to do the 5 in, 5 out, but as you go into practice and you start seeing kids and kind of understanding them more, I was like, man, we weren't able to do that. And then you also look at, you got, like you said, Eric Berry is probably the best point guard in the area. You got Isaiah Thomas, who's a great track kid. He could stay on the floor the entire time. And when
Isaiah gets going, he can really score.
Yeah, he can. I mean, he dropped 44 in our sectional game, so the kid could play. But you kind of start to understand the kids a little bit more and kind of how they play. Like you said, in the summertime, you've got all these ideas, but when it comes down to it, you start to see like, well, this kid probably can't play this much, or this kid could stay out there longer. We did our first 5, and then I would just kind of sub based off of how hard I thought a kid was going. So, Eric, great point guard, but if I ever started to see, his right arm start to get a little limp when he runs, that means he's getting pretty winded. So if I start to see any type of slippage in that, you just get him out for a quick, 30 seconds, then able to put him back in so he's fresh. But you just kind of go off of, the true system everybody thinks of Grinnell. It's a 5 in, 5 out. But you look back at like Paul Westhead, he did it with 7 kids.
That's right.
There's different ways of doing it. And, the Grinnell system is just one way of doing it. But, anytime you got kids with maybe a little higher talent, you want to keep them on the floor. And that's kind of what you said, early on. So I just kind of went off of that.
Yeah, and I know that, Toby played for me, and Toby can tell you this. We ran something similar to that because, to me, the Grinnell system is fast break basketball, like you said, taking it just all the way to the max. Mm-hmm. It's a way to try to teach kids to not pace themselves, which was actually our motto. We would tell guys, don't pace yourself, play as hard as you can, and we'll get you a sub. And there's different ways to do it. I mean, we've had groups before that were really deep where you could rotate 8 or 9 or 10 kids, and then we've had to do it before with, 6, 7, 8. And, Toby, when you played for me, you can relate to a lot of the things that Coach is talking about. So kind of talk about your experience with it and kind of piggyback off of what he just said.
I think just like you guys are saying, it's really fun for the kids to play. It gets more kids into it, and I think it just builds a ball player. Because like the kids you're talking about coming in as like the 8th, 9th man, if you don't play this way, they're probably not ever going to be, a key player in any type of game. But because you play that way every day, you practice that way, I think it builds your program and it builds your bottom players just as much because they're in there playing and getting opportunities every single day. And then I think that just kind of leads, it trickles up to the top where they're getting better too because they don't want the bottom catching up to them. I just think, it's a great way to play. If you're a kid, if you're a kid to play and you want to shoot, you're going to come and play hard every day and try to get better because you want to go out in the games and shoot. You don't want to play for that coach that's telling you not to shoot the ball, which is what a lot of them do. Like Coach Hahn was saying earlier when he first started, it was, pass it, move it, work it for a good shot, But now it's, hey, if you got a clean look, let it fly. And that was kind of, when I coached down at North Pim, that was kind of our mindset too. I wouldn't say we were like full-blown system, but we were going to press and try to get the ball. I wanted to create a lot of possessions. I thought that would give us more of a chance. And try to go shoot real quick. And we kind of had a formula where we were going to shoot a layup or a 3. Nobody was allowed to shoot the ball off of a dribble. You're going to catch it and shoot it, or you're going to get to the bucket. And once you see it go up, everybody's going to go rebound. And I just think they bought in.